What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you with another solo video today. We're going through the start-sit matchups. As usual, you guys know the drill. Wednesday's videos, we're going through every matchup, every quarterback, every wide receiver, every running back, every tight end, their fantasy outlook, maybe what happened these past couple weeks or last week specifically, what kind of their outlook is going forward and for this week. As always, guys, if you enjoy this video at any point, hit the like button, helps us out tremendously. Comment any of your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, all that good stuff. And as always, guys, there's timestamps in the description. If, for example, you only want to know about Noah Fant, what his outcome is or what his outlook is this week, you can go ahead and skip to the Denver-Atlanta game. In the description, it'll be on the screen as well, and you don't have to hear me talk about every game. Although I would appreciate if you guys stick around to the end of the video, helps us out as well. We're going to hit the intro, and then we're going to get right into this. All right, so before we get into the intro, I hope you guys had a better week than me because in my fantasy matchup, you'll see this on the screen right now, I lost by like 0.4 points. And basically, I would have won if a lot of things happened. So on that last drive of the Giants and Buccaneers game, I would have won if Daniel Jones doesn't throw to Slayton on that like last drive for like 15 yards. No problem. I still had a chance. I would have won if they stop him on 4th and 16. No problem. Still had a chance. Would have won if Levante David holds on to that interception. No problem. I still had a chance. I would have won if they don't allow a touchdown at the end of the game. Really, like all that stuff, if any of those things actually happened, I would have won. But instead, I lost. This also comes at a week after I lost on a Robert Woods fumble. So I've had 2 straight weeks where I've just experienced some bad beats. And this is my league that I care the most about. It's the league I've been in the longest, and it's for the most money. So I'm a little bit upset this week because I'm 4-4, and I really should be 6-2, coming off of 2 absolute horrible beats. All right, so the first, before we get into the first game here, we're going to go over the bye weeks. The Eagles, Rams, Browns, and Bengals all on bye. That's a lot of running backs, a couple good quarterbacks there, a couple good receivers. So as always, you're going to need to find some additional pieces to start because you're going to be missing some key players this week. And as we continue to do, we have the fastest paced games of the week. Per Football Outsiders and neutral pace for week 9. The NFL rank in neutral paces and brackets. Cowboys at Steelers is the fastest pace game of the week. Atlanta versus Denver. Chargers versus Raiders, and Cardinals versus Dolphins. Not nearly as fast paced games this week as there were last week. There was a number of like 2 top 10 teams in neutral pace going up against each other this week. Not so much, but still some solid pace games for this week. So into Thursday Night Football. And this game comes with a huge caveat because pretty quickly after I started writing up this stuff and trying to record this, Adam Schefter tweeted out, and a number of other guys confirmed it, that the 49ers are have closed their facilities as a precaution today at least, and doing contact tracing now. The reason is because 49ers wide receiver Kendrick Bourne has tested positive for COVID-19. So, huge caveat is we'll start with one, is this game going to even be played Thursday night? Because my suspicion is that it doesn't. I think it's going to get moved to Sunday or Tuesday or whatever the case is. I don't think this game gets played Thursday night, which probably means we don't have Thursday night football this week, which might be a hallelujah for some of you, including myself, but also kind of sucks because we have to wait a bit longer for football. Number 2 is, who are the contacts tracing? Because Kendrick Bourne is a wide receiver, my hunch tells me that Brandon Ayuk might be at risk of being a COVID high-risk contact, which is concerning. If this game does get either played Thursday or Sunday, Brandon Ayuk might either test positive or be a high contact and might not be able to play. So personally for me, as you saw on the screenshot, I have Brandon Ayuk, and that's concerning knowing that he was a wide receiver tested positive, meaning he could be a close contact. So definitely a situation to monitor. We're going to go forward right now, all the matchups, as if everyone's going to play, as if this game is going to get played, period. So just a quick caveat on that game. At the quarterback position in this game, you obviously start Aaron Rodgers, and I would sit Nick Mullins in this one. The Niners defense is incredibly decimated by injuries, and the Seahawks offense just hung 40 on them. So Rodgers and the Packers should be able to put up points in this one, but it's Thursday Night Football. Again, if Thursday Night Football happens, and usually weird stuff happens if it does happen. So keep that in mind when you're trying to predict Thursday Night Football, that a bunch of random shit happens. But Rodgers, without his main running backs, his top 3 running backs, should be able to put some points up through the passing game in this one. And then Nick Mullins, overall, I think he downgrades the offense a lot less than some people might think. I think the loss of George Kittle downgrades the offense a lot more than the loss of Jimmy does. Jimmy pretty much equals Nick Mullins more or less, but Kittle's loss limits Ayuk's scoring opportunities. And Brandon Ayuk right now is really the only wide receiver we care about. And then obviously the running backs, we care about their scoring opportunities as well. But although with Ayuk, they may feature him more, using him more as a target and maybe getting him more involved on scheme touches in the run game and stuff like that without George Kittle in the lineup. So again, keep an eye on Brandon Ayuk from COVID perspective, also just his usage in general. To the running back position, my start of the week actually is both of these running backs, Hasty and McKinnon. The reason being is because I saw someone tweet out the stat that the Packers defense in the 2 matchups against the Niners last year allowed like 400 rushing yards and like 6 rushing touchdowns. So the Packers run defense, we just saw Dalvin Cook absolutely cut right through them. Their run defense is terrible. It's absolutely the worst in the league. And there's a lot of layers in this run game. Obviously, Coleman is out again. So Kevin Coleman, you don't need to worry about him. And as I mentioned, the Packers defense is currently allowing the most fantasy points per game to the running back position. And if you dig deeper to those points, they have allowed the most receiving yards and receiving touchdowns to running backs in the entire league. It's really not even that close. So only that makes McKinnon a lot more valuable than maybe some people might think. But I think both guys are in my top 25. So I'm comfortable starting both guys. And only the Packers defense has only allowed the 13th most rushing yards. So I do think McKinnon may outscore Hasty in this one. Although, as I mentioned, both are flex worthy. To the Packers side of things, and as I mentioned, without the top 3 backs, A.J. Dillon has COVID-19 apparently. Jamal Williams is a high contact who's been ruled out. But although this could change if the game gets moved. But as of right now, I'm going to operate under the assumption that Aaron Jones not likely to return from his injury. A.J. Dillon has COVID-19. Jamal Williams, a high contact. But if this game gets moved, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams' status may change. So we really don't know who to go with as of right now. Given the tough matchup on the ground, 28th most rushing yards allowed and 32nd most fantasy points allowed to the running back position for the 49ers defense, I will roll with the pass catcher, who is Tyler Ervin of Tyler Ervin and Dexter Williams, who has a pretty nice profile, as you'll see on the screen right now. He has a chance to take the more valuable pass catching role in the offense. Tyler Ervin ran like a 4.41 coming out of college, had a very good college target share. So he should be involved in the passing game. He's the one I'm going to use if all those 3 guys are out and if this game even happens. Yeah, so Dexter Williams, to me, I think he's a waste of a fab spend. If anyone wants to spend up on him and fab, be my guest. I'm not going to chase him because he's had like 10 career carries and has like 8 career rushing yards. So I'm not exactly too excited about him. I'll roll with Tyler Ervin, but I would choose to start nobody if I can. To the wide receiver position in this game, you start Adams, obviously, and then you flex Brandon Ayuk. Each wide receiver is set to face the opposing team's best corner, according to PFF, with Jason Verrett on Devontae Adams and Jair Alexander on Brandon Ayuk. The good news is for Devontae Adams is that teams are game planning to avoid both guys, actually, but the guy, specifically Jason Verrett, DK Metcalf was schemed away from Jason Verrett and onto Emmanuel Mosley last game. Instead of being just like, oh, okay, you're on the left side of the field, you're going to run against Jason Verrett. So I expect Adams to get moved just the same way that Metcalf did, either moved into the slot or moved to the opposing side of the field, because obviously Devontae Adams is the best receiver on that team. And they generally scheme him open anyways. And especially in this one with a good corner on the left side of the field, I expect them to just avoid Verrett like the plague. Jair Alexander, on the other hand, should travel with Ayuk for the most part. So this downgrades Ayuk a bit. But Ayuk has been used in the slot at around a 25% rate, and Alexander has played only 13 slot snaps this entire season. So I expect Ayuk to be still in decent shape to get some touches, but when Alexander is on him, he probably won't get thrown the ball. But he will get scheme touches out of the backfield and hopefully in the slot as well. In terms of other receivers in this game, I'm not excited about anyone. Maybe a low-end flex of Marquez Valdes-Scantling is okay. But as I mentioned, they're going to move Devontae Adams around, and that might mean throwing MVS on Jason Verrett, so he probably won't get thrown the ball very much. To the tight end position in this game, whichever tight end suits up as the starting tight end for San Francisco is the one that you start, and you can stream Robert Tonyan. Jordan Reed is supposedly trying to push to play. We don't really know if that's going to happen or not quite yet. If he does play, he's a top 15 guy for me. And if he doesn't, Ross Dwelley is like a top 18 guy for me. So both guys are startable. If Reed plays, he's going to be obviously a good option. Then if he doesn't play, Ross Dwelley's a good option. To Robert Tonyan, he should see a bump with both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams out for this game. Devontae Adams can't really do everything. But as we saw last week, we saw Robert Tonyan get involved, and I think that'll probably continue to happen if all the running backs are out again. To the 1 p.m. games. Luckily, there's no COVID complications like the last game we just talked about. Giants at Washington football team. Sit both quarterbacks in this game. You should be able to find better options than these two. And both of these defense are actually pretty underrated. So both of these quarterbacks also just aren't good at football. The Giants may have played well against the Buccaneers on Monday night, but I expect to see a slugfest, low-scoring game in this one, as we saw in Week 6 when these teams played the first time. And I'm hoping that Daniel Jones doesn't break off a 60-yard run like he did in that game. To the running back position in this game, whichever Giants running back starts, I think will be usable, but I would prefer if it's Devontae Freeman. If Devontae Freeman plays, he's going to be in my top 26. If Wayne Gallman is the starting running back and Devontae Freeman is out, I would put Wayne Gallman in my top 32 kind of running backs. Because Gallman does remain the primary back, I guess, with Freeman out. They did not put Freeman on IR, which is notable because if he was expected to play, he was expected to play in Week 8 against Tampa Bay, and he didn't play. So I'm expecting him to play this week, but if he isn't, Gallman is the primary ball carrier, as I mentioned, but he's not a great option either. To the Washington side of things, Antonio Gibson obviously saw a career high in carries and touches the week prior to their bye, and hopefully he can take another step forward in usage coming off the bye, much like we saw from J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift and a couple of these other rookie running backs, Zach Moss as well. So hopefully Gibson can continue his ascension in the backfield. He's obviously the most talented back in that backfield, and the day that he takes over J.D. McKissic's pass-catching role is the day that Antonio Gibson becomes probably a top 15 running back, locked and loaded, and if not, he's already close to that range right now. So if you own Antonio Gibson, I think it's only up from here. I unfortunately just traded him away, but I got Alvin Kamara back in return, among other things. So I'm not too upset about that. Wide receiver-wise in this game, you start Terry McLaurin, you flex Darius Slayton, and you can low-end flex Sterling Shepard. To the Giants side of things, you'll see the matchups on the screen right now. Darius Slayton is set to go up against Kendall Fuller, with Sterling Shepard against Ronald Darby and Golden Tate in the slot. So those matchups, all those guys are kind of interchangeable in terms of how good they've been at the corner position. So I don't see a huge advantage one way or another for any of these receivers. I would expect to see a shadow matchup on the other side of things from James Bradbury on Terry McLaurin, though. However, in Week 6, when McLaurin faced Bradbury, he did most of his damage against other players. So they didn't use James Bradbury as a shadow corner like 90% of Terry McLaurin's routes. McLaurin was moved around. He was schemed open, and he only recorded 2 of his 11 targets against Bradbury for 12 yards, whereas the 74 yards he recorded were against other corners and safeties and all that kind of stuff. So they will move him around to avoid Bradbury. So I wouldn't be too worried about Terry McLaurin. As I mentioned, with Darius Slayton, he is always a boomer bust option. You're never going to be able to trust Darius Slayton week in and week out. He is consistently in the top 36, though, due to his ceiling. And low-key, Sterling Shepard has actually been solid when he's healthy, recording 6 and 8 receptions in the 3 games that he's played all the way through. He actually got injured in one game and left early. But in the other 3 games that he's played, he's been good. So I think he's like a top 40 receiver. I don't really want to start him, but if you need to, I think he's usable. And then to the tight end position in this game, you could stream both guys. Is it great? No, but both guys are featured parts of their passing game, and they command solid volume. Evan Ingram and Logan Thomas are both, they're not great. They're not playing great, but due to their shitty offenses, they're not high upside plays, but both are streamable due to the volume that they do get. Chicago Bears at the Titans. At the quarterback position in this game, you obviously would stream Ryan Tannehill, and then you can stream Nick Foles if you're absolutely desperate, although I probably wouldn't want to. Tannehill will probably be in for a tough week this week, going up against the Chicago Bears. They have not allowed more than 26 points this entire season, with the Falcons and Saints being the 2 teams that put up 26 on them. So the Titans figure to probably score around that number because they are a top 10 offense. But this Titans offense struggled against the Bengals defense last week. So who knows what we're going to see from them. I do think they're going to put up generally around 25 points against this Bears defense, but this Bears defense is very good. So I don't expect a 40-burger hung on them by the Titans. So keep that in mind when you're streaming Tannehill. He probably doesn't have a crazy ceiling this week. To Nick Foles, he goes up against a top 10 smash matchup against quarterbacks. So he's a desperate quarterback play if you're missing Burrow or Wentz or whoever else is on bye this week. So you can use Nick Foles if you need to. Although I probably wouldn't want to because he's not that great of a quarterback in general. But I think he is usable if you need him. Running back wise in this game, obviously you start both of the two starting running backs, Derrick Henry and David Montgomery. It's not an easy matchup for Derrick Henry, but he's as safe as they come right now in terms of his volume on the ground and on the goal line and all that kind of stuff. And then to David Montgomery, 80% of the snaps and significant touches in every game since Tariq Cohen's injury. Montgomery isn't necessarily a safe option or a high floor option because he's not that good, but one of the most projectable touch baselines in the NFL will earn you a top 15 running back ranking just because I know David Montgomery is going to get 15 plus carries and 3, 4, 5, 6 targets every single week. What he does with those targets is yet to be seen because he's really not that good, but he should be in line for great volume every single week. So that's good to know if you have David Montgomery. At least he has the potential of putting up a good game every week. Wide receiver wise in this game, you start AJ Brown, you start Allen Robinson, and you can flex Corey Davis in this game. I heard a crazy stat relating to the Titans on that they are bottom 5 in the NFL with only 70 offensive drives total for this entire season. And for reference, the Cowboys have 90. So that's like a big discrepancy. We've played 8 games. That's over 2 per game of offensive drives more that the Cowboys are getting and a number of other teams are getting over the Tennessee Titans. And this is weird because the Titans are a great offense. You'd expect them to stay on the field and convert third downs and all that kind of stuff. But the reason is because they are top 5 in drive success on defense. So they're allowing their offense, much like the Cardinals last year, they just can't get off the field. They are, hopefully Desmond King can help them get off the field a little bit more, who they just traded for, but they have been historically bad on defense on third down. The matchups for the Titans receivers will be on the screen for you right now. As you can see, AJ Brown with a pretty big advantage going up against Jalen Johnson, who's been, kind of up and down as a rookie corner, as most rookie corners are. He's been pretty solid from what I've seen, but AJ Brown's going to wipe the floor with him. It's honestly, to me, it's really weird why the Bears are so good against wide receivers and quarterbacks, because according to PFF, their corners haven't been good in terms of their grades and stuff like that. I think it's probably obviously due to their pass rush, but I think Tannehill's ability to throw under pressure, he's currently one of the best in the league under pressure. 69.8% adjusted completion percentage is one of the best in the league. 8 touchdowns to 1 interception under pressure, and he has the 3rd highest passer rating, only behind Justin Herbert and Matthew Stafford. So I think the Titans offense should be good enough to beat this defense. And in general, in the year 2020, I think I'll take great offense versus great defense any day of the week, just because it seems like the cards are stacked in the favor of the offense most of the time. So I think the Titans should be able to put up some points on this Bears defense, but it is a pretty tough matchup, as I mentioned. To the Bears side of things at the receiver position, you'll see Allen Robinson going up against Malcolm Butler. Is just absolutely no contest in that one. As I mentioned, the Titans defense has not been great at slowing drives down, and A-Rob should be able to take advantage of that. If the Bears end up running a lot of plays, Allen Robinson's probably going to have 12 targets in this game and catch a lot of balls, probably get into the end zone too. But I would keep an eye on Darnell Mooney because he's been excellent and might be a great stash for your bench. And he's also probably a good buy low in Dynasty because, he's a 5th round pick. A lot of people don't assume that he's going to have a great role going forward, but he could be like this time next year, he could be like a Darius Slayton type who was also a 5th round pick. So I'd keep an eye on Darnell Mooney because he's been playing pretty well. And at tight end in this game, you can start both tight ends. Graham had a bad game, but he's still in the top 5 in targets at the position with a decent with a decent red zone share. So I will still roll him out there with confidence. And this is probably a big one at the tight end position, but Jonnu is in a rough situation right now because it seems like his role has decreased with Corey Davis emerging on the surface. But if you dig deeper into the numbers and stuff, I don't think this is going to last with Jonnu Smith, him playing bad and all this kind of stuff. He's after running only 13 and 15 routes in week 6 and 7. In week 6, he got injured. And then in week 7, he was coming off of his injury. So he got back to his usual share of routes and snaps, over 80% of the snaps in week 8. And he ran, as you can see on the screen right now, he ran 22 routes in week 8 compared to the 13 and 15 that he ran in week 6 and 7. So I think he's one of the best buy lows in fantasy right now. I think he just honestly had a down game from a receiving volume perspective. I tweeted this out earlier, but Cincinnati actually had the ball 10 minutes more than Tennessee, which kind of goes back to the point of Tennessee can't get off the field. But I don't expect that to continue. The time of possession was just way in favor of Cincinnati, and I think there's going to be a lot of volume to go around in this offense, even if Corey Davis is a good option for fantasy, which I'm still not sold about. I think Johnny was still one of the better buy lows because I think there's plenty of room in this offense. It's a top 10 scoring offense for a reason. And I think the defense should correct itself a bit, and they should be able to get off the field a little bit more on defense as well. So Johnny Smith, if you have him, you could still play him as a top 8 option. I still think he's fine. Just keep it. If he disappoints this week, I'll change my stance. But I think this past week, what we saw from his usage and all that kind of stuff should lend itself to him having a better week this week. So keep an eye on Johnny Smith. But again, I probably wouldn't panic on him, and I'd even send some trade offers out there for him if the Jonnu owner in your league is panicking. So to the next game, Lions at Vikings. In this game, you can stream Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins. Matthew Stafford, he didn't exceed more than 7.24 yards per attempt, which is, that's kind of average quarterback play without Kenny Golladay in the lineup. So every game that Kenny Golladay missed this season, he wasn't very good. And I think he means a lot to this offense. And Kenny Golladay is probably going to be out for a couple weeks. And without him, it significantly downgrades Stafford to that kind of Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins territory where you don't really want to start him, but you can in a good matchup. And that's probably his high end, to be honest. I think on the lower end of things, he's more in the Nick Foles, like Daniel Jones area. So he is streamable this week as a top 18 guy, but I don't think he's a slam dunk because of Golladay being out. Kirk Cousins has historically done well against Detroit since he's been in Minnesota. And this receiving core is an absolute mismatch for the Lions secondary with Thielen and Jefferson. So give me him over Stafford. If I'm faced with the choice between Cousins and Stafford this week, I would definitely take Kirk Cousins over Matthew Stafford, given the injury to Kenny Golladay. At running back in this game, Dalvin Cook, obviously he's a stud. That's all I have to say about him. You start him every week. DeAndre Swift, on the other hand, he didn't have the outing you wanted last week, but that matchup was a lot tougher than this one. This matchup against the Vikings is a lot easier than the one he went up against the Colts this past week. So the game script will hopefully be closer. Also, the Lions kind of got blown out and were playing from behind. And Swift, for what it's worth, he did run 26 routes even in the blowout, and he's a modest kind of feature back who will be inconsistent, but he's a 100% startable as a top 24 guy this week. So if you have Swift, you can start him, but keep in mind, he has a low floor. It's Matt Patricia, and he's also a rookie running back who hasn't taken a full grip of his backfield yet. So don't assume that he's a 100% startable guy every week. He is startable, but he's not safe by any means. To the wide receiver position in this game, you start Jefferson, Adam Thielen. And I think you can low-end flex Marvin Jones with Kenny Golladay out. As you can see on the screen right now, Justin Jefferson going up against Amani Oruwariye, pretty big advantage for him. And then Adam Thielen going up against Jeff Okudah, I believe is the biggest advantage on the week in terms of wide receiver matchups. So I mentioned this on the recap show, but Jair Alexander was actually on Justin Jefferson, not Adam Thielen like was initially anticipated. So that means teams are actually starting to scheme against Jefferson, which should open up things for Thielen more. So if you own Adam Thielen, that's a good thing that they're going to focus on Jefferson more, because that means Thielen is not like the clear number one in the offense. Teams are more seeing them as like a 1A, 1B type thing. And for what it's worth too, Justin Jefferson and Jair Alexander are more of like a match in terms of like the way they play and the way that they match up against each other. So that might have been what Green Bay was thinking when they matched them up against each other. Either way, I expect both guys to be solid in this game because there is no Jair Alexander on the Detroit Lions. There's no one who could stop either of these guys. So both guys are in my top 15, and I expect both to be great in this game. And then, as I mentioned with Marvin Jones, he is usable as a top 36 guy. He's been more involved the past couple of weeks. As I mentioned, the offense in general takes a step down without Kenny Golladay, but Marvin Jones should see a volume increase without Kenny Golladay in the lineup. So I think you can use him, although he's not a slam dunk option. Tight end wise in this game, TJ Hawkinson has been absolutely incredible. And I think you can stream Irv Smith as well. So currently tight end 5 in points per game is TJ Hawkinson. He has been everything you wanted in a late round option if you picked him there. And hopefully his role and his talent continue to improve and grow and develop in this offense. And as he gets more time in the NFL, much like the receivers on the Viking side of things, I'm not taking anything away from the 14 pass attempts that Kirk Cousins threw last week. Dalvin Cook completely dominated that game. And obviously Irv Smith didn't see a lot of volume, but no one did because they didn't throw the ball. So, but as far as Irv Smith's routes, you'll see it on the screen right now. He was route participation. He was at 83%. So he was on the field when they threw the ball, but they didn't throw the ball a lot. In this game, they're going to throw the ball more. And I think Irv Smith is a great start. He's actually my stream of the week, start of the week at the tight end position. I have him currently at tight end 15 because his ability, his talent, his usage in the red zone and him being involved more is all lending itself to him being a great option at the back end of the season this year. So to the next game, Panthers at Chiefs. Quarterback wise, you could stream Teddy Bridgewater in this game, and you start Patrick Mahomes, obviously, because he's Patrick Mahomes. Teddy Bridgewater is in that neighborhood with Stafford and Cousins and Carr, like I mentioned, where he's completely matchup dependent. Sorry. This isn't an easy matchup, especially for Teddy, who hasn't been good when Carolina has gotten down early and forced him to throw and make all the plays. So on the surface, a lot of people like to use this narrative. Oh, well, like start quarterbacks against the Chiefs because the Chiefs get up early and they force their opponent to throw from behind. But that's not necessarily a good thing unless you're a really good quarterback, usually like Deshaun Watson or something like that. But Teddy Bridgewater has not been very good when he's played from behind. We saw that this past Thursday night against the Atlanta Falcons. So he's probably going to get down early in this game against Kansas City, but that might not necessarily be a good thing. He might take a lot of sacks, might throw some picks or something like that. So you can stream him as a top 20 option, but I would prefer to stream someone else like Kirk Cousins, as I mentioned. Patrick Mahomes obviously has answered the call when I said that that this passing offense wasn't firing on all cylinders. They kind of proved me wrong last week. They absolutely flamed the New York Jets, and hopefully he can keep it going against a Panthers defense that has taken a step back, allowing the Falcons and Saints to have big games in the past few weeks against them. So hopefully the Chiefs can keep it going and keep up their passing numbers. For my Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's sake, I want them to run the ball more, and this should be a matchup they can run the ball in because the Panthers are terrible against the run. But we'll see how it goes. If they keep passing at the rate they're passing at, it's going to be another Patrick Mahomes game. So running backs in this game. We'll start with the Panthers side of things because it's pretty simple. If Christian McCaffrey is back, you play him. You can't sit Christian McCaffrey. If he's back, you also sit Mike Davis and you don't play him ever again. You could probably drop him after this game once we see how he's used with McCaffrey there. But that's pretty simple. If McCaffrey's back, you play him. If he's not, you play Davis. To the Chiefs side of things, it's a lot more complicated. Since Bell got there in the past 2 weeks that Le'Veon Bell has been in Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has ran 39 routes to Bell's 19, and he's out-carried him 14-12. He's also out-targeted him as well. So it's fine if Bell and CEH split carries, in my opinion. I expected that to happen. It obviously downgrades Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but it's still good. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets 12 carries a game, that's fine. He's a smaller back. I want him more involved in the receiving game anyway. But to know that CEH is getting the edge in the passing game in terms of targets and pass routes is important because this is honestly just a backfield with low opportunity these past 2 games, and I don't expect that to continue. So once the opportunity for the backfield goes up, then both of these guys are both going to be more valuable, and especially CEH, who people have really soured on. And I think that's just a complete overreaction because, I mean, they've ran the ball like 20 times in the past 2 weeks, and I think that's going to continue to ramp up, especially in this matchup where, like I said, the Panthers are terrible against the run. So I could see CEH having a big game in this one and people kind of going overreaction the other way. So wide receiver wise in this game, you start Tyreek Hill, obviously. You start Robbie Anderson. You flex DJ Moore, and you can low end flex Mecole Hardman. So on the Panther side of things, I'll put the matchups on the screen right now. It's not the result that we wanted from DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson against the Falcons last week, but they do have good matchups again this week. And I'll say it again, TNF sucks. Thursday Night Football is terrible and weird shit happens. That game should have been a shootout. It should have been higher scoring on the Panthers side of things, but TNF decided to make Curtis Samuel a thing. And before anyone asks me, don't pick up Curtis Samuel. He's not going to have a good game anytime soon because he's Curtis Samuel. He has 2 good games a year, and that's about it. So I expect these 2 main guys to get back on track, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, both to be solid in this game. They're both in my top 26. With Robbie Anderson, I believe he's in my top 15. To the Chiefs side of things, Tyreek Hill obviously has been on a tear, and you'll see the matchup on the screen right now. He's going up against Jeremy Chin in the slot, which is a great advantage for him. Jeremy Chin's been pretty good, but Tyreek Hill against a rookie nickel corner who was actually a safety in college ain't going to go too well for him. And Mecole Hardman is probably the bigger story on this one because everyone knows Tyreek Hill is a stud. He has seen a slight bump in playing time since Sammy Watkins has been out, and he finally ran more routes than Demarcus Robinson this past week. And he's getting scheme touches as well. He's getting like carries out of the backfield and in the red zone and stuff like that. So he's always a risk to play. I get that. Mecole Hardman is never a sure thing. But if you get down on Thursday Night Football or something, or you just need some upside in your lineup this week, maybe you have a lot of your upside guys on bye. That's exactly what Hardman's for. And I think he can be useful from that perspective. And then tight end wise in this game, pretty simple. You start Travis Kelce because he's Travis Kelce, and you sit Ian Thomas because he's Ian Thomas. To the Texans at the Jaguars, quarterback-wise in this game, you start Deshaun Watson, and then you sit whoever plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars, whether it's Jake Luton or Mike Glennon. Watson, in my opinion, is the biggest winner of the trade deadline because none of his weapons were traded. That's the big deal. Will Fuller was rumored to go to the Green Bay Packers for a couple days, and they also said that Kenny Stills and Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb were also in trade talks as well. So the fact that none of those guys were actually traded is huge for Deshaun Watson's fantasy value because he has actually been the number 2 quarterback in fantasy since Bill O'Brien was fired, averaging 26 points per game from his fantasy output. So he is looking fantastic in doing so as well. Playing the Jags, Browns, and Lions, 3 of his next 4 games, Deshaun Watson is going to be really good these next couple weeks if you still have him. Running back wise in this game, it's finally an easy backfield that I don't have to talk about too much. You start both guys. David Johnson is an every week starter, and so is James Robinson. James Robinson is an easy decision when you're averaging 20 opportunities per game, and you have yet to get less than 16 opportunities in a game this entire season. So James Robinson, top 10 running back, easy. Same goes for DJ, not a top 10 running back, but he's a safe bet for volume. If only he were actually efficient on his volume, he'd be a league winner. Nonetheless, in the first matchup versus the Jags, he averaged over 5 yards per carry. And that's the only time since week 1 that he averaged more than 4 yards per carry. So the last time they played the Jags, he was actually efficient. Every other time after that, he hasn't been efficient. So hopefully David Johnson's able to actually keep up some efficiency in this game. To the wide receiver position, you start Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks. You can flex DJ Chark, I would say, and then you can low end flex anyone else. And the reason I say that is because this game, I believe, has the highest over-under of the entire slate. And Ian Hartz tweets out his pass efficiency offenses versus pass efficiency defenses every week. And in terms of a good passing offense versus a bad passing defense, this is the best advantage of the entire slate. So this game should be very high scoring, even with Jake Luton as quarterback. So on the Texans side of things, Will Fuller going up against Sidney Jones, absolute smash play, Will Fuller this week. And then Brandon Cooks against CJ Henderson is also a great matchup. And even Randall Cobb, if you're desperate, I don't think is a terrible play either. The 2 main guys should be who you are starting in this one. Fuller only saw his fantasy value going down if he were to be traded. I think had Will Fuller gone to the Green Bay Packers, his fantasy value takes a huge hit. 1, because he probably wouldn't be able to play this week, given the fact that they play Thursday night, or they're supposed to play Thursday night. And 2, he's going to have to get acclimated to a new offense. He's going to have to find his role in the offense. The first game he plays is probably going to be limited snaps. He's much more valuable on the Texans. So if you have Will Fuller, you're thanking your lucky stars that he was not traded to the Packers. And then to the Jags side of things in this one, this is really messy in terms of this receiving core. I expect Bradley Roby to shadow DJ Chark in this one, as you can see on the screen there. So that could mean big games for the rest of these guys. But to be honest, this is not a situation you want to attach yourself to. Jake Luton as the quarterback, likely. I would start Corey Davis, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Williams over all these guys. But I do think Laviska Shenault could have a big game in this one, going up against a guy I'm very familiar with in Vernon Hargreaves, who absolutely sucks at football. But DJ Chark, if he doesn't perform in this game, he's probably droppable, to be honest, because the quarterback situation is not getting any better. The offense still sucks, and DJ Chark is not playing as well as I thought he would either. So DJ Chark, this is a make or break game for him against Bradley Roby. Tight end wise, this is pretty easy. You sit all tight ends in this game because neither team has a really good tight end. Maybe Darren Fells if you're desperate and Jordan Akins is out. I would not start Darren Fells if Jordan Akins is active, though. To the Ravens at the Colts. In this game, you obviously have to start Lamar Jackson. I know it's kind of gross to watch them, but you would sit Phillip Rivers in this game on the other side of things. Rivers played well against the Lions, but you cannot start him in this one because, I mean, the Ravens defense has just been very good against quarterbacks. And as far as speaking of being very good, Lamar has not been very good at quarterback, which is super concerning if you spent a 3rd round pick on this dude, and exactly why you don't do that. You don't draft quarterbacks early because not only has he regressed in the passing game from his MVP form, but he's regressed in the run game as well. He hasn't run the ball nearly as effectively or as often as he did last year. For Lamar, hopefully he's able to get back on track, but he's still a top 12 guy every week due to his rushing floor. Even though it's not as good as it was last year, it's still like second best only to Kyler Murray in terms of rushing fantasy points per game at the quarterback position. So even in another tough matchup for Lamar Jackson, I still think you can start him as a top 12 quarterback. And I can't believe I actually just said that given what we thought of Lamar going into the season, but things change. Running back wise in this game, another kind of janky 2 backfields that I have to go through. All right, 2 more complicated backfields, as I just mentioned. Both of these run defenses are very good. So let's keep that in mind. If these guys have bad games, the Ravens run defense is currently 1st in DVOA right now after the Bucs and Steelers both had pretty bad rushing defense games. and the Colts is 4th. So they're both excellent run defenses. But we'll start with the Colts and hope that the ankle injury was the cause of Jonathan Taylor's disappearance in that game. If Jonathan Taylor practices in full leading up to this game and is ready to go, he's the guy I'm willing to start. If he's out, then I'm willing to start Jordan Wilkins. If he's limited, it's going to be really messy, but I still think you have to start Jonathan Taylor if he plays. Hopefully, if he's banged up and is going to be limited, they just rule him out and you can start Jordan Wilkins. That gives us some clarity then, but I think what's probably going to happen is Jonathan Taylor's going to practice limited, and then full, and then play in this game and probably disappoint you because it is a tough matchup and Jonathan Taylor isn't very good. So to the Ravens, I'm getting really excited about J.K. Dobbins, like very, very excited. I tweeted this out on Monday, but not only did J.K. Dobbins have a 66% snap share, which is workhorse feature back type snap share, he played a possible 23 of 29 passing down snaps, and he ran 17 of the 19 running back routes. So he is the passing down back on this team. And again, you'll see in the tweet there, yes, the Ravens only throw to the running backs at a 16% rate, which is not very high. It's tied for 23rd in the league. But Dobbins is an absolute workhorse in this area. He has a monopoly of this backfield in terms of passing down snaps. He's starting to check a lot of boxes. And if you go to if you see the tweet below it, I said he's starting to check the box of talent because he's 4th in yards per touch. And in my opinion, has looked like the best rookie running back in this entire class. He was my RB2 going into the draft, and I'm kind of taking a victory lap because a lot of people thought he was kind of in a tier behind CEH, Jonathan Taylor, and DeAndre Swift, and more him and Cam Akers were more in the same tier. I didn't see it that way. I had a high second-round grade on J.K. Dobbins. I thought he was excellent in college. Big plays. He has 2nd in breakaway run rate. And he has great passing down usage, as I mentioned. Top 12 scoring offense. All we've yet to see out of J.K. Dobbins is red zone opportunities, and hopefully they get better. We saw it in week 1 when he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I want to see J.K. Dobbins be the feature back of this team. This team is actually struggling on offense, and J.K. Dobbins can help them get on track. He is the best player on their offense right now, and it really isn't even that close. So hopefully the Ravens wake up. I'm not sure what the status of Mark Ingram is for this game. If he is out again, Dobbins should continue to assert himself as the clear best option in this backfield. But that being said, Gus Edwards is still very usable as an RB3 option because he should see 12 to 15 carries. Now, what does that mean against a bad matchup in the Colts? He could get into the end zone. That's pretty much what you have to hope for out of Gus Edwards. If you're playing him in this game, he has to score a touchdown or he's going to be bad. That's pretty much all it comes down to. Hopefully, J.K. Dobbins is able to just firmly take over this backfield because for someone like myself, for people who are Ravens fans, like anyone who wants to see this offense be good, J.K. Dobbins needs to be the feature back. It's time, John Harbaugh, make him the feature back. He's clearly your best runner. Anyway, wide receiver-wise in this game, another guy that's kind of frustrating, much like Lamar Jackson, is Marquise Brown. I still think you can flex him in this game. And then on the Colts side of things, I would not start a single Colts receiver in this game. Marquise is frustrating to watch. I understand that because he looks great, like as a player, and Jackson does not. He's like a rich man's McCole Hardman, in my opinion. Right now, you just basically have to hope that he catches a long ball or Lamar figures out his shit and can get on track with Marquise Brown. But in this game, he takes a hit because of the defense he's playing against, much like he did last week. Lamar Jackson's going to be under pressure, especially now without his left tackle and a couple other pieces on that offensive line. I believe Orlando Brown and Matt Skura are the only 2 starters left on the line right now, with Marshall Yonder retiring, Ronnie Stanley getting hurt in this past game. It definitely downgrades the offense, knowing that the offensive line is quite banged up right now. But to the Colts side of things, as I mentioned, I wouldn't start any of the Colts wide receivers. Here's who they're going up against if you do have to start them. But T.Y. Hilton is currently the guy I guess I would start of these receivers if I have to, but I don't want to because Marcus Peters has been very good this year. T.Y. Hilton is not, and neither of these other guys. So if you don't have to start a Colts receivers, don't. All of them are the same right now. They're all bad until someone stands out. That might take until Paris Campbell comes back, who's the only Colts receiver so far this season who's looked good. But as of right now, none of them are startable. I don't want to start any of them. To the tight end position in this game, Mark Andrews, you could start, obviously, and then sit all the Colts tight ends. So Andrews has been disappointing lately, again, probably due to Lamar Jackson struggles, and presents probably a decent buy low opportunity, assuming the Ravens offense can get back on track with their schedule easing up after this week. But I still think Mark Andrews is still a top 5 tight end going forward. He's too involved. He's too involved in the red zone. He makes big plays. Don't worry too much about Mark Andrews. If anyone's going to get back on track in this offense, it's going to be him. And then on the Colts side of things, I'll stick with my stance on the Colts tight ends. I think they're all useless in the committee that they're in. I don't really care that Trey Burton scored the Wildcat touchdown to save his day. He's not good. He's not a good tight end. None of these guys are overly that great. And then Mo Alley Cox is like, he's back. Jack Doyle's back. Like this is a three-way tight end timeshare, and Trey Burton got lucky last week. That's my thoughts on that. Seahawks at Bills, quarterback wise, you start them both. Both guys are top 5 options for me, with Allen facing the NFL's worst passing defense and Russ being Russ. So running back wise in this game, this is all going to depend on Chris Carson's injury. But if Chris Carson is out, you start DJ Dallas. You saw his awesome usage last week with both him and Hyde out. So if that's the case, you can fire him up. If Carson is back, you obviously start him. It'll get a little bit more murky if Hyde is back and Carson's not, and it's Hyde and DJ Dallas. But I don't expect that to happen. I think if one, like either it's going to be Dallas or it's going to be Carson. I don't think Hyde's going to be back this week. And if he is, I think Carson will also be back. So it probably won't matter. To the Bills running backs, I think you can flex both guys. Devin Singletary and Zach Moss both split the backfield quite evenly last week, and they both looked pretty solid in doing so. If I could tell you who I liked more, I would, but I honestly just have no idea what to do with these guys. I would say you can roll both of them out as running back 2s and high-end RB3s, but neither of them are safe. Neither of them are great options, and if you need to look elsewhere, I would. To the wide receiver position in this game, you start the usual 3 characters that you'd think you would start: Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. And I think you can low-end flex the 2 other Bills receivers as well. DK Metcalf expected to go up against Tre'Davious White, who will most definitely shadow him, which could result in like a Tyler Lockett game. But the way Metcalf is playing, to be honest, I'm not doubting him against anyone, including Tre'Davious White. So I think both Metcalf and Tyler Lockett should be in for solid games in this one, probably big games. If we're being honest, this one should be very high scoring. And then on the Bills side of things, Stephon Diggs going up against Quentin Dunbar he's just going to rinse him. And then John Brown, Cole Beasley in the matchups that they have, they should be usable guys in their matchups. Diggs is currently my wide receiver 2 on the week, facing the league's worst pass defense, as I mentioned. I think he goes nuclear this week. I think he drops a 30-plus point game, which may leave less for Beasley and John Brown if you're choosing to start them. But I am fine throwing either in my flex if I'm desperate, given the matchup that they have and given the fact that this is going to be a high-scoring game. To the tight end position in this game, neither Greg Olsen nor Tyler Kroft are reliable enough to start. You should be able to find better streamers. So that's pretty quick on those guys. Broncos at Falcons, and some kind of funny news that came out during this game on Twitter today that I saw, and that was kind of funny, was Tack McKinley basically called out himself for not being very good at football and was like, Atlanta, what the hell are you doing? You could have gotten a 2nd-round pick for me last year and you didn't trade me. And you could have gotten a 5th or 6th for me this year and didn't trade me. Like, why are you holding on to a player that's not very good? Was basically his point of his tweet, which is kind of fucking hilarious, to be honest. He wants out of Atlanta so bad that he is willing to call himself a bad player, which is the weirdest thing you're ever going to see a football player do. Because if there's one thing that you know about football players, that they have big egos, and clearly Tack McKinley does not. Anyway, in this game, the quarterbacks start Matt Ryan, and you can stream Drew Lock. Matt Ryan has only failed to pass the ball more than 36 times in one game this entire season. And it was last week when they got out to a big lead against the Panthers, courtesy of Todd Gurley, going up against the dog shit run defenses that the Panthers have. And in this game, this is not a dog shit run defense. This is a good run defense. It's pretty stout against the run, and they're more susceptible to the pass. So I think this is a bigger Matt Ryan week and a lower end Todd Gurley week than we've seen the past couple of games, with Todd Gurley having like the easiest schedule I've ever seen. Drew Lock in this game is probably a good streamer, knowing that he's going up against the Atlanta Falcons. And he's been using his tight ends, and he's actually playing a lot better. He had some confidence now. He's dancing on the sideline, all that good stuff we like to see out of Drew Lock. So he's in a great matchup that makes him a top 20 guy, in my opinion. I think this game should be also pretty high scoring. A lot of these games this week are, I think, someone said 8 out of 14 games this week have an over under above 50, which is a good news if you're a fantasy player, obviously. And then to the running back position in this game, you start Todd Gurley because he's been absolutely great these past couple of weeks, and it is a tougher matchup, as I mentioned, but he should be good to at least get some goal line opportunities and get a lot of carries. So not a lot of passing game usage out of Todd Gurley, though, which is, it hasn't mattered for him given the touchdown volume that he's had over the last couple of weeks and the cupcakes that he's played against, as I mentioned. But he may struggle in this one. Just keep that in mind. To the Broncos backfield, it's an interesting note on Melvin Gordon and Lindsay is the fact that Philip Lindsay only ran 8 less routes than Melvin Gordon. So Melvin Gordon had like 7 targets last week. It looked like the clear passing down back, but Lindsay running a lot of routes is a bad sign for Melvin Gordon. If you have Melvin Gordon, it means Lindsay is taking over more of this backfield than we anticipated. We expected Philip Lindsay to get some touches here and there. We expected him to carry the ball primarily, but he has not been a good receiver. And the fact that he's actually inching in on Melvin Gordon's receiving work is not a good sign if you own Melvin Gordon. So keep an eye on that. But both guys, I think you start Gordon if you have him, and you kind of low end flex Philip Lindsay if you need a kind of a desperation play. To the wide receiver position in this game, you could start both Falcons wide receivers, and my start of the week is Jerry Jeudy at the wide receiver position. PFF's football doc expects Ridley to miss 1 game. So he actually expects him to be out for this game. Currently, PFF has him listed in the matchup chart, as you can see right there. But the Falcons have a bye next week. And Calvin Ridley suffered like a mid-foot sprain or something like that in the game against Carolina. So it would be wise of Atlanta to sit him, especially considering the Falcons are not going anywhere this season. They're not going to win many games. So if that happens, Julio Jones is an excellent start, and I think you can flex Russell Gage if that happens also. But Ridley does have a chance to play in this one, so I'm not going to rule him out and say that he's out for this game for sure, because if he does play, you could see the advantage on the matchup chart there. 49% over AJ Bouye, and Julio Jones also great advantage against Michael Ojemudia. And then wide receiver-wise for the Broncos in this game, Jerry Jeudy's the only one I'm willing to start. I think this is his breakout game. This is the cake matchup that Jeudy has needed for a while. With Tim Patrick probably out for this game as well. We saw him get 10 targets last week. Jeudy finally with Drew Lock healthy with some confidence should feast in this game. And I think he can make a huge play down the field, break off a couple tackles and just like a highlight reel play. I think this is the week that Jerry Jeudy shows why he is one of the receivers that needs to be talked about in this rookie class, because everyone's talking about T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. Let's not forget that Jeudy was a better prospect than all of these guys. And I don't even think that's a hot take. I think everyone in their right mind had Jeudy above all of those guys in their prospect rankings. So this week is the Jerry Jeudy week. You can book it. To the tight end position in this game, both guys are top 12. Noah Fant has yet to see less than 5 targets all season and has seen 7 and 9 targets the past 2 weeks that he's been healthy along with Drew Lock. Albert O is involved. I've seen Albert O get some run, but Drew Lock seems to like both guys. And I think there's room for both guys. I'm not necessarily willing to start Albert O, but Drew Lock has used Albert O. He went to college with him, and he's a good replacement if Noah Fant were to get injured. But as of right now, Noah Fant is the starting tight end, and he's the guy that I'm willing to start. And then on Hayden Hurst, he's been a sure bet for volume as well. Since his slow start, he has seen 6 or more targets in every game but one since week 4. So he has been highly involved, and he should see an uptick if Calvin Ridley is out for this game as well. And he's actually running the second most routes at the position, only behind Travis Kelce. So Hayden Hurst is definitely a lot safer than he's been maybe early on in the season. And I think he should have a pretty decent game in this one. To the Las Vegas Raiders at the Chargers. And this is the start of the 4 p.m. games. Quarterbacks. In this game, both guys are top 12 guys for me. Everything I've said about Derek Carr I said last week, Derek Carr has been super consistent. He's passing for like 286 a game and getting like 2 touchdowns a game. He's been efficient, consistent, and solid, even in difficult matchups. He's basically playing like Drew Brees right now. And unfortunately, he cannot overcome the weather last week against the Browns, but who could? Like the weather was brutal there, and I don't really blame Derek Carr for that game. But the Chargers are actually one of the most favorable matchups for quarterbacks, allowing 24.4 points per game to the quarterback position. So I do like Derek Carr quite a bit in this game. And he's actually probably my start of the week at the quarterback position if I had to pick one. And then Justin Herbert in this game gets another cupcake, and he's going to ride this production wave all the way to Offensive Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. So this is a great matchup for him. He's set up to have another big game in this one. So if you picked up Justin Herbert, like I said to a couple weeks ago, Justin Herbert's schedule, looking back at it, when he first had his breakout game against the Bucs, we were like, man, look at his schedule coming up. He has like 7 great matchups in a row. He's like right in the middle of that right now, and he's going to continue to be great. To the running back position in this game, Josh Jacobs and Justin Jackson are both starts, and then you can low-end flex Josh Kelly in this game. Jacobs is seeing a huge amount of volume this past week, and it's not surprising given what the weather was, but hopefully he can take a step forward with the fact that his schedule is starting to lighten up. His schedule was brutal to start the season. It was brutal early on, and it's starting to get easier. So hopefully if you want to buy Josh Jacobs low, you probably don't have to give up too much for him. If what I expect from Josh Jacobs the back half of the season is what we saw week 1 against Carolina, where he was just dominant, and hopefully he's able to get back to that point. I'm not sure he will be able to, but I think he's going to be better this back half of the season than he was the front half of the season. And then, as I said last week, Jackson is the back to own in Los Angeles. He is looking like he's 80% of what Austin Eckler was before he got injured. And although this could be a week where Josh Kelly has a good game because the Las Vegas Raiders are so susceptible to the run, it's a good matchup for both guys. They're both going to get touches, and I think Justin Jackson is a great start in this game. To the wide receiver position, this one's pretty fairly straightforward. You start Keenan Allen. I think you can flex Mike Williams. And then I would say you can low end flex pretty much any one of the Las Vegas receivers. I have a preference I'll get into in a second, but I think either of them, if you were in a pinch, you could use any of them. Keenan Allen has been ultra consistent since Justin Herbert took over. He has 10 plus targets in every game that Herbert has started, except for the game where Keenan Allen left early against the Saints. So every game Keenan Allen has finished the game, he has been excellent. He has been getting crazy volume, and he's been super efficient. Mike Williams is another one of those guys like Hollywood Brown, like McCole Hardman, like Henry Ruggs, who we'll talk about in a second, who is one big play away from making your week. But he is attached to a really good quarterback right now, and you want pieces of Justin Herbert's passing offense. Imagine saying that in the offseason, that you want pieces of that. I have Mike Williams as a top 30 guy this week in a great matchup. As you can see, Mike Williams going up against Nevin Lawson. We saw how that worked out for Nevin Lawson last week. When Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples, who toasted him last week? I can't even remember who it was, but he was cooked. And against Nevin Lawson in Tampa, he was cooked by Scotty Miller on that back of the end zone touchdown. So Nevin Lawson's terrible. Mike Williams expects to probably have a good game against him. And then same goes for Keenan Allen against LaMarcus Joyner. On the Raiders side of things, Ruggs, Renfro, and Aguilar is the order I would play them in just for the ceiling of someone like Henry Ruggs. But I probably would rather not play any of them if I can help it. But it is worth noting this game should be higher scoring. Another game that has an over 50% over under. And as you can see there, Ruggs, his week 8 usage has actually been pretty good despite the weather. Obviously, I said last week, I'm like, this is the Henry Ruggs breakout game we've been waiting for. Obviously, the weather interfered with that, and that wasn't the case. This game, I might have been a week early. So Ruggs week 8 usage, 75% snap share, and 90% route rate. So he was actually very, very involved. And in the previous week, you could see Jared Small tweeted out from week 7. He was also very involved that week as well. So I pretty much expect Ruggs to get on track, hopefully, in this game. And I would start him as like a top 40 receiver. But again, I mentioned you should have better options. If you don't, then you can definitely start him. But yeah, he's pretty much it. And then Renfro has a decent matchup as well. So I don't think he's the worst start in the world. To the tight end position in this game, both guys are top 8 options. 2 of the highest floor tight end options there are in Darren Waller and Hunter Henry. These are both guys that should be in for some targets in a potential shootout. So I'm not shying away from either of those guys, as you might expect. Steelers and Cowboys, the next game we have on the docket here. Quarterback wise in this game, you start Big Ben, and then you sit whoever is going to start for the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert. We don't exactly know yet, but as we all could tell, Ben DiNucci isn't an NFL caliber quarterback, and the Cowboys have decided to bench him to start one of these other 2 yahoos that they have, Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert. Either way, neither of them interest me for fantasy, so I'm not going to start either of those guys, but I think they do upgrade the offense in general over a guy like Ben DiNucci, although they're not as good as Andy Dalton, obviously. So Ben, on the other side of things, should have a great outing in this matchup where he sees one of the most anemic pass defenses he's seen thus far this season, and he has yet to show a huge ceiling, but he presents a great floor. As I mentioned, I've kind of been saying this past couple of weeks, that Ben has yet to have like a 300 passing yard, 4 touchdown game, and maybe he won't have one like that. It's possible that he never has one where he's doing that, but he's been a great floor guy. He's almost a sure bet for like 250 and 2 touchdowns every week. So I think you can definitely start him in this matchup. At the wide receiver position in this game, I say you could start everyone except for Michael Gallup. So all 3 Steelers receivers are in play. Do I know which Steelers receiver is going to do well? No, but I bet multiple do well against this Cowboys defense. You cannot sit any of them in this matchup. I understand Deontay Johnson has left games early with injuries, but if he plays in this game, you have to play him because the matchup is too good. I currently have it Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Juju Smith-Schuster, 21, 23, and 24. So they're all in my top 24. They're all very close. So any of those guys are startable options. And they're all back end twos. To the Cowboys side of things, you'll see the matchups on the screen there. Amari Cooper going up against Joe Hayden and CeeDee Lamb against Cam Sutton. It is worth noting that CeeDee Lamb only played 47% of snaps last week, which I'm not exactly sure why, but that's exactly what happened. Someone actually dropped CeeDee Lamb in my league, so I'm probably going to blow my fab on him, to be honest, because I know the offense isn't great, but he is still a wide receiver 2, in my opinion, a high-end wide receiver 3 at worst. And when Andy Dalton comes back, this offense figures to be a lot better. But I think whoever starts for the Cowboys is an upgrade over Ben DiNucci, as I mentioned. I think it's going to be Garrett Gilbert, if I had to guess, because he, in my opinion, is the better quarterback of him and Cooper Rush. But Cooper Rush has been there longer and has more trust of his teammates. So who the hell knows? I don't expect either of them, though, to get much going offensively against the Pittsburgh Steelers front. So I'll start Cooper and Lamb as high-end threes, but that's about it. I don't really want anything to do with Michael Gallup or Dalton Schultz. Speaking of Dalton Schultz, you definitely sit him. And then Eric Ebron. The Ebron disrespect, man, it's getting out of hand. I tweeted this out a couple minutes ago, but Eric Ebron has had 5, 7, 6, 4, 8, and 5 targets since week 2. He's recorded 40 or more receiving yards in every game except for one since week 2. And he ranks top 6 in air yards and average depth of target, along with having a 24.2 red zone share. So he is getting all the volume you want. You want downfield volume out of a tight end. You want red zone volume out of a tight end. And you want high volume in general. So Eric Ebron, I mean, he's like 13th in ECR right now. I have him in my top 10, and I think he's going to stay there because the way he's being used is a top 10 tight end usage. All right, final 4 o'clock game that we have here, Dolphins at the Arizona Cardinals. In this game, you would sit Tua Tagovailoa and you would start Kyler Murray. I'm not ready to start Tua yet. I know ECR. I think ECR had him at like 20, which is like borderline startable range, but he didn't really show much in his first start, averaging a very low average depth of target and yards per attempt, which is not what you want out of a fantasy quarterback. So it's a solid matchup, but I think there's better streaming options if you absolutely need someone. I would rather start Drew Brees, Matthew Stafford, Drew Lock, Nick Foles over a guy like Tua this week. So I think any one of those 4 guys that I just mentioned should be available, and I would stay away from Tua if you need a streamer, if you have Burrow out or whatever. So on Kyler Murray, he is an every week fantasy superstar. He is like one of the only early round quarterbacks, aside from Mahomes, who has actually delivered on his promise of being good. Kyler Murray's weekly finishes this year, Graham Barfield tweeted this out. He has not finished lower than the QB 10 all season. He's been in the top 5 like 4 times. And this is, Graham actually tweeted this out before last week when he had, I believe it was 38 points against the Seattle Seahawks and was the quarterback 2. So he is averaging 12.5 fantasy points per game just from his rushing alone. Anything he adds on top of that as a passer is great because 12.5 fantasy points per game is like an RB2. So Kyler Murray is basically giving you RB2 numbers plus quarterback 1 numbers, which is excellent to see if you drafted him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. And then to the running back position in this game, you would start Chase Edmonds because Kenyon Drake is going to be out for this game, which automatically makes Chase Edmonds a top 15 guy, in my opinion, with his usage in the passing game, his talent that he's shown thus far. And the fact that Kenyon Drake is out, I think he's a top 15 option. And right now on the Dolphins side of things, I can't quite give a definitive answer on who to start and who to sit, but I would say with the Dolphins backfield, we know that Gaskin is going to be out for this game. He's supposed to be out the next 3 weeks or so. My gut tells me that Matt Breida is going to be the main running back, but Jordan Howard will likely be activated now that Gaskin is out. He's been inactive, healthy scratch for the last couple of weeks. So if I had to guess, I would say it's going to be like a Breida Jordan Howard split, but they also just traded for DeAndre Washington and they still have Patrick Laird. So I'm going to go with Breida as the guy if you need someone to pick up off waivers and start, because I think he does lead the backfield, but I honestly have no idea. And if any Dolphins fans have a better idea than I do, please chime in the comments section, because I'm honestly quite lost on this situation. We don't have a lot of clarity about it. Hopefully we'll get some going into Sunday, but we might not. We might just have Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, Patrick Laird, and DeAndre Washington going into Sunday, and we're just going to be playing Russian roulette with who to start. But Matt Breida is the guy I would start if I had to pick one. Hopefully you don't have to start any of these guys. But if you just lost Myles Gaskin, then you probably do have to pick up one of them and start them. But I would actually rather start the Tyler Ervin for the Packers or any of the Niners running backs or any of these other fringe guys over Breida or any of these Dolphins running backs. So Wide receiver wise in this game, you start DeAndre Hopkins, you could flex Devontae Parker, and low end flex Christian Kirk and Preston Williams in this game. Hopkins should see Byron Jones, which isn't ideal, but Kyler will still find ways to get him the ball. Kirk is worth a dart throw, but that's about it against a pretty tough defense, low key. The Dolphins have been quite good against the pass. As you can see there, DeAndre Hopkins going up against Byron Jones is actually quite a tough matchup. And then Christian Kirk going up against Xavier Howard, also not a good matchup, but DeAndre Hopkins is matchup proof in my opinion. It's a good corner that he's going up against, but he's DeAndre Hopkins and he is one of the best receivers in the league for a reason. On the Dolphins side of things, PFF expects Patrick Peterson not to be on Devontae Parker. They expect him to be on Preston Williams for some reason. When shadow matchups come out, I expect Parker to be shadowed by Patrick Peterson, but that shouldn't be a huge issue for Parker because Patrick Peterson has not been the shutdown corner he's been most of his career. Tight end wise in this game, you can stream Mike Gesicki. I can't take away too much from Mike Gesicki's 2 targets in Tua's first start because they had a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown. They didn't have a lot of offensive plays, but this dude has a low floor, and I would roll him out as a top 18 guy, but I don't really agree with anyone who ranks him inside the top 12 or anything like that because Mike Gesicki has been very up and down. He's only had like 3 games this season where he had more than 5 targets and a couple games where he's had like 3 or less. So definitely be aware of that. If you choose to start Mike Gesicki, he could very well drop a donut or be a huge disappointment. Sunday Night Football, and I am freaking giddy for this game because this one is going to be awesome from an NFL perspective as a Buccaneers fan. I can't wait to see Saints at Buccaneers. Start Brady, low-end stream Drew Brees. Again, we'll have to see if Brees gets Crybaby Thomas back for this game. If he does, he obviously sees an uptick, and he'll probably move into my quarterback 15 area or so because without Michael Thomas in the game, Drew Brees currently sits at 19 for me as a safe floor play, but he has low upside in a bad matchup that he's going up against. To Tom Brady, he's now getting Antonio Brown, which increases Tom Brady's floor and his upside in this game against a pass defense that hasn't been very good. The one thing to note as like a Bucs fan is that the Saints pass rush, for whatever reason, is in the head of the Bucs offensive line. Every time we play the Saints, our offensive line looks so much worse than it actually is. And there's a chance that this one is lower scoring if the Bucs struggle on offense than most people might think. So keep that in mind. Antonio Brown is going to play in this game, and he should see like 50% of the snaps or so, and he should see some involvement, and he definitely upgrades the offense over having Jaden Mickens get 8 targets like he did against the Giants. But Antonio Brown is not just going to slide into like a full-time role and take over Chris Godwin's job. Like that's not going to happen. He's going to be involved, but he's also not going to be a full-time player quite yet as he learns the playbook and all that kind of stuff. So to the running back position in this game, obviously Alvin Kamara needs no analysis. Even in a tough matchup, his pass game and goal line usage will make him just fine in this one. And then this one is a little surprising to me where people are on this guy. I thought everyone kind of understood what happened, but I guess not. So I'll have to clear this up. Ronald Jones bites the dust again. New York, he fumbled the ball, which was, to be honest, not on him. It was a great play by the defense. The defense gets paid too. So this is the risk with Ronald Jones, though. He has a short leash. If he fumbles the ball, if he drops a wide open pass, Fournette's going to come into the backfield. That's just what's going to happen. That's the way Bruce Arians is. It's dumb as hell because no one on the team is more punished than Ronald Jones. Like Leonard Fournette dropped 3 passes and didn't get benched. And Jaden Mickens dropped some passes, didn't get benched. I don't understand why Bruce Arians doesn't have any trust in Ronald Jones for whatever reason. I know he turned the ball over inside his 10-yard line, but again, that wasn't really his fault. It was a tipped pass to the line of scrimmage. He caught the ball, and the defensive player, Blake Martinez, made a good play on it. It's not really Rojo's fault. Anyway, Rojo is the far superior runner. Like, it's not even close. Anyone who watched that game knows that Fournette could not do anything. He couldn't run up the middle at all. Rojo is so much better as a runner than Leonard Fournette. But obviously, Leonard Fournette is way better in terms of hands, like catching the ball, than Ronald Jones. And he also doesn't make as many mistakes in terms of fumbles and blitz pickups and all that kind of stuff. So both guys are in my top 26 with Ronald Jones at 16. I still have faith in Ronald Jones this week. So don't be completely scared off of him. You can still start him. This is a tough matchup, though, so keep that in mind. To the wide receiver position in this game, you start Mike Evans, you flex Antonio Brown, and you sit all Saints wide receivers unless Michael Thomas plays. And if Michael Thomas plays, he should see a shadow coverage from Carlton Davis, who held him to 3 catches for 13 yards in week 1. So it's not a great matchup for Michael Thomas, but obviously if he does play, you cannot sit him because his volume is just too high. Otherwise, if Sanders plays, which I don't think he's scheduled to, I don't want to start him or Traquan Smith unless I'm desperate, because this pass defense is pretty stingy, and I don't expect the Saints to get much going in ways of receivers. I think Kamara, Latavius Murray, Jared Cook, Taysom Hill are the guys that do the damage in this game, and not the receiver position. All right, so pay attention to reports this week. If you have Antonio Brown, you need to know what his usage is going to be like. We might get some indication of what it's going to be. If you do, if you get some indication, he should slide into the slot role and play against Chauncey Gardner-Johnson instead of Jaden Mickens. But again, we don't exactly know what the usage is going to be quite yet. My guess is that it's going to be like a 50% snap share for AB in his Bucs debut. And as we've seen, it doesn't take a lot of snaps for him to be involved from a fantasy perspective, get some targets and stuff like that. They'll probably bring him in on a drive, 2 drives, maybe 3 drives to get him involved. And I think he's probably due for like 7, 8, 9 targets, even with the limited playing time he's going to see, because we saw him get, I think it was like 6 targets on his opening drive in Miami when he was with the Patriots for that one game. So him and Brady have the connection. They have the chemistry. And I think if he's on the field, he's going to get targets. This is what's going to happen. The question is, how much is he on the field? And then Mike Evans, on the other hand, should be viable as well. But it's always worth noting that Marshawn Lattimore is going to shadow him in this game. He always gets up for his matchups against Mike Evans. And Evans has been kind of up and down against Marshawn Lattimore. For the most part, Marshawn Lattimore has gotten the better of Mike Evans. But hopefully AB can take away some attention so that Marshawn Lattimore isn't, and not only Marshawn Lattimore, but they're not bracketing Mike Evans as well, because they actually do both. And they probably will if AB is not involved in this game. So hopefully AB can take away some attention from Mike Evans, and he can continue to play well in Chris Godwin's absence. As you can see there, Scotty Miller going up against Janoris Jenkins. He might be involved as well in this game. I expect this one to be relatively high scoring, but as I mentioned, I think the Bucs O-line might be a bit overpowered by the Saints defensive line in this game. And then to the tight end position in this game, you start both guys as top 6 guys because they're both focal points in their offense, and they both have good chances to catch touchdown each and every week. So Gronkowski and Jared Cook, you can fire those guys up with confidence. And then on this last game, I'll be very quick with this one because I don't expect a lot of points in this game at all. Quarterback-wise, Patriots and Jets is the game. Monday Night Football, just absolutely disgusting Monday Night Football game. Cam Newton, you start him. Sam Darnold, you sit him. Newton got out to a massive start in New England the first couple weeks that he played, but it's quickly getting worse and worse for him. But he still remains a usable option with a solid floor. And in this matchup, he may actually be able to do something against a Jets defense that has been great for quarterbacks and specifically for rushing quarterbacks as well. Having the second most rush attempts from a quarterback on the Jets defense thus far. So I think Cam Newton should be able to get back on track in this game. This is a pretty easy matchup. And then to the running back position in this game, flex any of the Patriots running backs, to be honest, as low-end options, except for Damian Harris, who I think is a top 26 running back. And then you sit both Jets running backs because they suck. Bad matchup, bad offense, bad running backs. Don't start any of the Jets running backs unless you are absolutely screwed at the position. I'm not ready to denote Harris as a consistent fantasy option by any means, but it's definitely the best option in this backfield. I want to see him exceed like a 50% snap share because he's not really playing that many snaps. But when he's on the field, he gets touches. That's basically all it comes down to. So you can flex him, but you could also emergency flex James White or Rex Burkhead too, because honestly, who knows with the Patriots? If you're missing Myles Gaskin, I would almost rather start a guy like Rex Burkhead over like Matt Breida because, I mean, Rex Burkhead is efficient when he's on the field, and you never know what the Patriots running backs. Rex Burkhead could get 20 touches this week. That's just kind of how the Patriots backfield works sometimes. And then to the wide receiver position, this one's easy. Sit every receiver in this game. There is no receiver I want to start unless Jamison Crowder plays, which I don't think he will. If you absolutely have to play one, I would start Mims or Myers, but all of these receivers suck right now. So if you are forced to start any of these guys, RIP to you because you're probably going to lose this week. And then to the tight end position, same as the receivers. Not a tight end in sight I want to start in this game. All right. That was a bit of a longer show. I'm sorry if I kept you guys pretty long, but we had a lot of running back news and injuries and a lot of COVID stuff that happened. There was just a lot of beef in this show, so I hope you stuck around to the end. If you guys stuck around to the end, comment down below. Fuck COVID. And without further ado, guys, take it easy. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Hit the bell icon so you're notified when we go live. We will be live before Thursday Night Football to address any of your questions. If Thursday Night Football even happens, if it doesn't happen, we may go live anyway just to kind of answer some preliminary questions for you guys. all that being said, peace out. Enjoy your Wednesday.